And our final panelist is Brian of London, who also took this role last year. And he is about, as his baseball cap indicates, he's about as pro-Trump as you can get.
Bigger.
So, yeah.
Bigger. Build Israel great. Well, okay, so I'm Brian of London on Twitter, elsewhere. I am of London, not in London, because I live in Tel Aviv. Different world to this. So last time in this, I played the part of coming first, and I was strongly pro-Trump, even though he hadn't really done anything. He had just won. And the reason I was talking pro-Trump back then was because I'd been pro-Trump basically from the moment he went down the escalators. Unfortunately, I hadn't put my bet on Trump then. I waited until after the primaries, so I only got a very, very good payback instead of an extraordinary payback, but I made some money on Trump winning. And the reason,
so much winning.
Yeah, it's so much winning. And
for the Jews.
And the thing is that, as I tweeted out today, if the Democrats are going to put forward, who is their latest one? I mean, it's either Oprah or Elizabeth Warren. Oprah, Elizabeth Warren. The minute they nominate one of those, I'm putting another bet on Trump. And then I'm probably betting on Pence for the one after, and maybe Nikki Haley 8 years after that. I was pro-Trump because of the change in the Overton window. I've been campaigning on the counter-jihad in Islam for years. And I'd almost sort of given up on it when I moved to Israel. In fact, moving to Israel away from London was I'm sick of dealing with this Islam thing. I don't want to see it in my face every day, which is what I got in London 9 years ago. I'll move to Israel, and then the muezzin will shout even more often. But funnily enough, I don't feel the problem here. Trump said things during the campaign about Islam that I was heavily on board with. He said Islam hates us, which is one of the greatest, simplest formulations of our problem with Islam anybody can ever make. And the press missed it. They stuck with other stuff. But they missed it when he said, the problem is they seem to hate us. And like this whole point of, did he divide the Jews in America? No, the Jews in America were divided. He just showed everyone. So none of the divisions that have definitely been thrown up into the faces of non-Jews were not there. I mean, the Orthodox had voted against Obama twice. The liberal Jews had voted for Obama twice. It's quite obvious. Maybe a few dropped out in the second round, but not many. And along comes Trump. He's saying what I like to hear about Islam. He's surrounded by, it wasn't just the Jewish family. I felt that it was a Jewish philosophical way of looking at the world. And it was the counter to the far left philosophical way of looking at the world. The cultural Marxism that's gripped America and Europe to an even greater degree. He was counter to that. And he stuck with all of it. Let's just, I want to bring up some points about the move of the embassy, for example. All the way along, he was solid on it. But then every president's been solid on it. There's Obama talking to AIPAC, I'll move the embassy. There's Clinton talking to AIPAC, I'll move the embassy. None of them did it. I know, because I worked in the British government as a management consultant, and I have a sneaking suspicion it's similar in the American government, between the Foreign Office and the State Department. What they had to do against the State Department to move that embassy was greater than any opposition in the entire world. The fight that happened with Friedman and Trump to get that embassy moved was there. It was internal 100%. The Palestinians played no role in it. I don't think Bibi played a role in it. What they had to do was impossible if you did it by the old routes of diplomacy. The way he did it was he tweeted something and the damn State Department had to run around afterwards to try and work out the statement to follow the tweet. That would appear to be the way you get the State Department to move. And even once he said we're going to move the embassy, we all knew, the easiest way to move the embassy is to put a sign on the door of the consulate that sits there right now in Arnona. Right? You know, you just build an office for the ambassador. He's the only person that needs to move. It doesn't really matter. It's a 50-minute drive. You put a sign on the door. That's the new embassy. Now, we all know that inconvenient line runs right down the middle of it. Nobody knows if it's in no man's land but who cares? Stick the sign on the door. He was met with, I'm sure, massive opposition to that. What was his answer? No, we're just going to do it. I'm the damn president. And Bibi did this on stage at APAC as well. He said, can I move from the podium? This was just the other night. You know, there's a podium, he's giving his speech, but Bibi is a good speaker. He can speak off script. He said, can I move from the podium? And he looks to his side, and then he remembers, I'm the Prime Minister of Israel, of course I can move from the podium. I think Trump is doing that kind of stuff. Now, some people say it's unstable, but right now we're in the position where his instability has led North Korea to be so scared of what might happen that they're going to start talking again. And the problem that went all the way from Carter, through Clinton, through Bush, through, you know, all the way through these people, with Madeleine Albright giving him a basketball. Who remembers that? Giving Kim Jong-il a basketball in the hope, you know, signed by Dennis Rodman, in the hope that he wouldn't develop more nuclear bombs. And let's also not forget, when we bombed a nuclear reactor in Syria, 2003, was it? 7. That recently. When we bombed that reactor, it was North Korea's nuclear reactor, so North Korea damn well matters to us. So the idea that instability on the world stage can get results, I'm still on board with all of that, and I'm on board with the tweeting. I love the tweeting. I have it set to immediately tell me every time he tweets, because it's so much fun. The reactions. I mean, I could go on. Pardon?
Do you kick anthills to watch the scrambling?
If they're full of left-wing social justice warriors, yes. and here's the point. I mean, to prepare for this, I was driving around this morning delivering computers, but to prepare for this, I had playing the entire unedited YouTube of his talk last night in Pennsylvania. He gave a campaign speech, and we are back to the Trump that I fell in love with, which is the non-teleprompter Trump. So last night, I think he must have read a total of 50 words from his teleprompter. The rest of it was all off the cuff. And it's a comedy routine. This is what I said. I said this back a year ago. You don't understand because the media didn't show this to you. But if you watch the YouTubes, if you watch the full campaign rallies before he got the nomination, that's how he got the nomination. He was doing 1 hour, 15 minutes of comedic stick with stories, with engaging stories about his friend who builds factories, and he can't build a factory, so he's going to build it in Mexico, but when he's president, damn it, he's going to build it back in. All of that stuff's coming true. And of course they're tall stories. He's a property developer. You know, who's ever sold an apartment and said, at 5 in the morning the muezzin is really terrible, it's going to wake you every time? Who's ever said that when selling your own property? Nobody. So the thing that I'm waiting for, I still think that he's at the start. He has always worked on timescales commensurate with building a tall building. So the presidency is an 8-year thing for him. Forget 3 years' time and the Democrats. It's an 8-year project. So in the first year, he has to overcome internally. And I think on Israel, he's conquered the State Department. The State Department has just given up. They've moved the embassy to basically East Jerusalem. I mean, Israel Medad can argue the fine details, but it's definitely land that Jews were not able to stand in 1966. He's done that. Now he's got to he's got to get rid of the people who are not really for him on his team. He's got to solve the problem with all of the security clearances. He's got to solve this legal nonsense. I mean, the Russia thing is just a total and utter This is the split, actually. America, there's two dimensions, Dimension A and Dimension B. I'm in Dimension B and straddle. Dimension A are the people who believe that Trump is owned by Putin, who has pictures of him with Russian hookers in beds doing unthinkable things. Those people physically, vehemently believe this because the New York Times has never printed an article that said it's all bullshit. Hannity will go on TV every night and tell them exactly why it's bullshit, but they'll never watch Hannity because Rachel Madcow is on the other side. That's the dichotomy. Is it bigger? I don't think so. I actually think there's a vast swathe of middle America that doesn't give a shit, doesn't care about the Russian thing. They do care that their pay packets just got bigger. Their what are they called? The 401c, 501. Their retirement plans are all richer. That matters, and that's where this. So and they really do not care how well transgendered bathroom rolled out is going across the states. That's nobody's concern. So that's why I was for Trump. I think it's going to get better.
So do you think that Trump kind of genuinely loves Israel? And I guess another aspect of the question is, so when Trump was lashing out at Abbas for walking away from the table, he said, I recognize Jerusalem's capital Israel. For that, they would pay more, kind of implying that he would extract additional concessions from Israel peace deal. And Elder talked about the international Jerusalem. Do you think that if push comes to shove, Trump wouldn't just smack Bibi down?
I don't believe a word of any leaked plans I read in the media.
Okay,
I just don't.
Okay, but what he said when he said for that they would have had to pay more?
Correct. I don't believe anybody writing about Trump knows his mind. Okay, all the way through the election, I had some inside sources, and I'll say them. I have a close friend in New York, who goes to the Kabbalah Center, who knows his second ex-wife. Sounds tenuous. Also at the Kabbalah Center, but he's on speaking terms with him. How many people are on speaking terms with ex-wives? Often. Both ex-wives. It's a trick. It's a character trait. And the doors. Then there's more. There's the hairdresser. Melania's hairdresser is a Jew, lives in New York, owns a salon. He was on the flight to Saudi Arabia and walking around Saudi Arabia. It's just a great story. But the point is, I don't believe that the press. What happened when Trump was elected was that a whole load of very, very influential reporters were totally burned as far as close sources in the administrations go. And you see, it started out, there were still some holdovers who were leaking. That's happened less. Maybe Bannon was leaking, who knows? But I just don't believe reports. So Trump, his method of operation is written in his book. Just like Churchill, I'm going to do this terrible thing, the worst thing possible, okay? Churchill wrote about Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf in Gathering Storm. He wrote, there's the best summary ever written of Mein Kampf, so you don't have to read Mein Kampf, is in Churchill's Gathering Storm. It lays out the clear plan, the simple steps of Hitler's proposal, and it says, and it's got the famous quote, here is the new Quran of faith and war, turgid, verbose, but pregnant with its message. The main message of Mein Kampf was simple, and then he lists the point. And he bewails the fact that nobody read the bloody book. Here was Hitler coming to power in Germany, and nobody had read his book. Read Art of the Deal. You want to understand what Trump's up to with negotiations with the Bass? It's all written in Art of the Deal. And the point is, these two books are so wildly dichotomous. So anybody comparing Trump to Hitler is obviously evil to do that comparison. But read Art of the Deal. You'll understand. You always go big with the first offer. You always, with your first demand. It's something ridiculous. You can't ever have all of that. Now, is he going to take away bits of Jerusalem from us? I think, personally, it can't be done. And if it can't be done, even Trump won't try to do it. All we have to do, this is my solution, call Ramallah North Jerusalem and give it. Because it is basically North Jerusalem right now. It's almost Jordan. Did I answer that?
We'll have to take a picture. I can't get you in.
Any other questions? I mean, what else? What else?
Instability and stability. Is being a friend to your friends more important than any other quality versus the other things that are at play? And how he's changed that. And
Well, he's done it. He's a friend to his friends.
Right.
And what happened in the Arab world was, and the instability that Obama introduced seems to be that the old allies could no longer rely on America. Egypt, quaking, Jordan doesn't know where it is. Look, I don't think these places will ever be our friends. The Saudis will never be our friends. Till the end of time, the only proposal that will come out of the Arab world towards us is you guys can just be dhimmis and live under Muslim rule. That is the only proposal they're allowed to give. It's written in the Quran and the Hadith and the Sunnah. They'll never give us another offer. Every offer they've ever given was that one. So if we bother negotiating, that's it. America is now clearly back to being an almost unconditional friend of ours. And that for us is a good thing. But I think also what people said about, the politicians would go to AIPAC and say, oh yes, I voted aid to Israel. Damn their damn aid. We don't want their F-35s. We should have built our own aeroplanes. We should have weaned ourselves off this, it's the state handout benefit system of the world. We shouldn't be on it anymore. We should try not to be. And so that gives a problem to left-wing politicians who think that you win Israel by giving us gift vouchers to spend in the General Dynamics store back in America. That should be over. The whole world, the world of warfare is changing. We shouldn't be buying these big-ticket, expensive items from America with gift vouchers they gave us. And that would also make Jews, it would remove a very, very significant part of criticisms towards this notional aid money that we're just given. I mean, it's not aid, it's not given. The UN, UNRWA money, that is cash in buckets handed to people who give it to terrorists. Our money appears to be a debit card that we can spend at the American Defense.
Having actually worked spending that money.
Yeah.
I used to work at the Israeli Ministry of Defense mission in New York. It's a lot more complicated.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not that it's simple. So am I. I have to. But the truth is, on several levels, it's not really about Israel. In other words, that money. On several levels, it's not about Israel, especially since it can only be spent.
Correct.
In the States.
It's a subsidy for the American defense industry. Correct.
But not just the defense industry. Lots of other industries. The food industry.
I know.
The garment industry, all sorts of things that they spend.
I got an order to sell computers in Israel to a company. And then when they found out that we would be buying them in America with my American company would buy them from a supplier. They then we can buy them in New York and we can use our American defense funds. And it was the same freaking transaction. The computers wound up in Israel with Hebrew on the keyboards. But it's very weird.
But in other words, it's true that the chief role of it, the chief visible role of the aid is definitely political, diplomatic. I would say though that it's not the chief effect of it. Yeah. In other words, that's the political purpose of it. But the effect of it is much more subtle, much more beneficial
to America.
To America and to Israel. It is handled properly.
I'm happy to admit that, but I think it probably makes America greater than it makes Israel.
It could be.
So there's another dimension to that, which I actually was expecting you to articulate. Maybe you didn't for a reason, in which case you still won't. But that is what goes in the other direction. And I think increasingly, at least as far as I can tell, as an ignoramus on the outside, reading nothing but the published media, the value that's going west in terms of technology is of great interest to the United States.
Intelligence.
And
Intelligence. And I
listen,
think that they're getting their $3 billion worth. And now, whether that's something that can be discussed is not clear to me, and what impact it would have on whether the world truly loves us if we told them on this, as in all other things. I agree with my wife, and I think that it probably wouldn't make a whole lot of difference to the public, the people in the Pentagon.
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying end aid now and all of this sort of stuff. Look, personally, government spending is generally the worst thing ever. They're the worst spenders of anything. I just don't like governments. I prefer smaller entities. But for defence, you've got to have something on the scale of a government. So it's the worst that we got. But
can I ask a follow-up to what I was asking about friends and friends is how you treat your enemies.
yes.
And to me, I mean, is Trump good for the Jews? Trump's good for Trump. That's
And America.
But I'm not saying I'm not leaving out America. Just want to say that
let me tell you
Trump
another
is going
thing.
to put something forward potentially, and if you say I'm with you, which I think Israel will do, we can rely on the other side to screw the pooch, and we should just hold on and go with him. Now, I think he's the kind of person, if you do that, he's also going to take your interest into consideration, but he's going to want to get the credit. That's what I mean by Trump for Trump, and I have no problem with that.
Okay,
but he's
if
going to
you-
put fear in the enemy,
That's
and he's going
correct.
to treat them poorly, and I think that is good for the Jews.
It is. Let me just explain something that you don't. An impression about Trump that you do not get if you only watch edited highlights or the news media's recollections of what he says in rallies. Okay, if you watch an entire 1 hour, 15-minute rally, what you will hear is a man who always spreads the credit. He always is copious at thanking other people. He never says I in the way that Obama used to. Obama's speeches were I. Trump, even when he says, he doesn't say I won the presidency. He always says we won the presidency. You won the presidency. You won Pennsylvania. You don't get the idea that this man is in it. This was the other thing that right from the very start I thought. I said nobody who flies around the world in a 757 is that determined to upgrade to a 747 that he will run for the President of the United States of America. The 757 is pretty darn good. I still haven't detected any hint of personal gain or self-aggrandizement in his decision to run for the presidency. I just can't detect it. Everybody will say that it's there. The New York Times will write it, and they'll say that he's got business interests, and David Frum will write about how they're giving money to Mar-a-Lago for hosting events. I think it's chump change. It's bullshit. He's 72 years old. He's made more money than he will ever be able to eat for the rest of his life, all of his living descendants. He doesn't care. I'm sure he's taken a financial hit to become president, unlike Obama, unlike Clinton, unlike Bush, who all gained from the presidency. So I don't detect a personal motive. So I think he's genuine about making America great. We can argue over whether he'll do it. But I think as far as dragging Israel along with him, I think as long as we don't piss him off, which Bibi seems to be the perfect person not to piss him off. I mean, if we sent, God forbid, some of our left-wing people to Washington, I think disaster would ensue. But he will back his friends, and he is ferociously loyal and rewards ferocious loyalty.
There was talk about the pendulum on the left, swinging farther away on the left.
I disagree with that too.
Well, my question is there also a chance, even within the right, will 7 years from now, after this project is over, will the next right half of the country be nominating a Trump follower, or will it be Bush as usual?
I don't know. But I will say, I don't think Trump is right. I don't think he's right-wing. He's ambivalent. Well, no, he's pro-gay. I mean, there's nothing about him that's discriminatory towards gay people. He's not rushing off to ban abortions. I mean, He's not what you would call a classic right wing in the American sense.
He wasn't
He's
registered
tall.
Democrat.
His judges are good. His judges, yeah, he's going to. But all that's going to do is counter the insane push left. And I mean, there's so many judges at all levels of the American system that are politicized to a horrific degree. So I don't think he's a pendulum swing far out to the right. I think he's actually he's one of the most central candidates America's put forward in years.
I have a question about what you here talked about. How could it possibly hurt Israel to rephrase? This is not a subsidy. This is mutual business, and list all the benefits that America is receiving.
I think that's exactly what should be done.
I mean, there's besides what you say, there's one very big thing that kind of interesting. It's this is a place where the superiority of American weaponry, particularly American airplanes, but also tanks, is being shown to the world, generating hundreds of billions of dollars in sales for American.
Actually, their tanks are not superior. That's why we've got our own and the Merkava
Okay,
4. But the planes. But I think we would have had a plane.
Do you think that Saudi Arabia would buy $100 billion worth of American?
They
if
buy it
it
'cause
wasn't
we've
that
got
Israel had
The
shown them.
alternative is Russia, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
But-
This is not the Romney Levy. There are only two brands on offer.
Well, the Chinese actually.
Well,
started.
the simple question is, why not reframe it and rephrase it? Like,
Perhaps
why,
it will.
why were you saying that can
Ask
hurt us?
him. Yeah, because
you were saying that it might hurt us. No.
I don't know how much of it we want to talk about. I don't know how much of it, and I mean I don't know. And I noticed that the
Well, we can
person
talk
who's
about-
most knowledgeable
we
is
can talk
standing
about the
here
past.
is not talking, and that tells me a lot.
He's talking about you.
Okay, yeah.
I think I should probably.
Yeah, I think that you could probably wrap it up. I mean, I think you've taken over like a lot of the time. But okay, I mean, I mean, thank you again. It's if there anybody else, yes, thank you.